Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I have some historical fiction that I want to read. Okay guys, two things. First of all, I legit just talked for like, I don't know, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, and I hadn't pressed record. So yeah, this is take two. And secondly, I am not filming in my favorite place in my house. I am filming here in my room because the dishwasher is going. And as Lindsay knows, the dishwasher is a very enthusiastic contributor to the conversation when I film in my living room, which is adjacent to the kitchen. So we're going to let the dishwasher have the rest of the house, and I'm just going to be in here. And this is my least favorite place to film in the house because, as you can see, the lighting is horrible. Even though I have the window right over there, the curtains are open, I have every light in the room on. It's horrible lighting. And also, it's just not my favorite place to be. Of all the rooms in this house, this one has not been updated since the house was built. And I'm not going to tell you when the house was built, but let's just say it's approaching middle age rapidly. So the carpet is vile and the ceiling is textured. I don't like textured ceilings. And the paint on the walls is my fault because we painted it when we bought the house, but it didn't look like I thought it would. So I don't love it, and I haven't loved it since we put it on the walls. But you know, once you do all that work to get it up there, I mean, by George, it's gonna stay there until it's just horrible. And so we're getting there. And then finally, the trim. Everywhere else in the house, the trim has been updated to like a pure white, but the trim in here is still a nasty ivory-ish color, like the closet behind me. The closet doors really need to be repainted also. So this summer, actually, my husband and I are planning to renovate this bedroom and the bedroom, my son's bedroom next to ours. And it will be the last. Everything else in the house is updated except for these rooms. So we are going to do that. Hopefully most of it we will do ourselves except for the carpet. And we've already priced out the carpet and are working on that. So I am really super excited about that. It's going to be so much work, but I'm going to be so happy when it's done. We talked about putting can lights in the ceiling, which would alleviate the lighting issue, but it's already so much kind of overwhelming as it is. So that's going to have to be another project for another day. There's always something, right, when you own a house. Anyway, that's not why you're here. You are here to talk about books. So let's talk about books. To celebrate the historical fiction reading challenge that Shelley Swearingen is doing in the month of June, I really wanted to do a historic fiction focused video because it's my absolute favorite genre. No contest. I love historical fiction of any kind. Historical, any book that's set in a historical time period, I'm down for it. It can be mystery. It can be romance. It can be just about a real event or not about a real event. There are some new hybrid genres of historical fiction that include a little bit of magical realism or history bending. That kind of thing. I have not read much in that genre or in that realm of things, but I'm interested in it. I have read time travel. I've not read a great deal or any really fantasy because fantasy doesn't appeal to me particularly, and also, you know, that also would be kind of like genre bending as well. But if it's historical, count me in. I love it. However, as I was thinking originally to do a historical fiction recommendation video with my favorite historical fiction books, but as I was going through my stocks and pulling out the books that were my favorite historical fiction personally, I realized there was nothing unique in that stock. They're ones you've heard many people talk about before, and there's a reason that they're favorites. There's a reason that I like them, because they're just good, solid, fantastic books. And most people who read them love them. So I had nothing new to offer you in that way. So instead what I did was I went through my shelves and I pulled out all of the historical fiction that I have spotted for one reason or another and collected and that I want to read sometime in the near future. And I'm going to share those with you. And I thought this video could be mutually beneficial. First of all, you may see a title that you had not heard of that is interesting to you, and you may want to read it and add it to your TBR. Or you may see something in my stack and say, oh, that was so good. Definitely read that one. Or you might be like, yeah, I didn't like that one, or I don't think you like that one. So please let me know in the comments if you've read them, how you think that I will like them or not. And if you had never heard of them, it may interest you and you may want to read it yourself. So let's get started. First, I have 5 that I have mentioned before. Some of them are in my, actually most of them I think are in my TBR for June and or have been in previous TBRs in the recent months because I really do want to read them. I just haven't had the time to get to them yet. Or, you know, I've picked other things instead in the moment. But I do genuinely want to read them. So I won't spend a lot of time on these ones. I won't spend a lot of time on any of these because I've never read them. So it's not really recommendations per se. Just sharing with you my eventual historical fiction TBR. First of all, this one, Ragtime, which was made into a musical, which is mostly my interaction with this book. I also started reading it many years ago, DNF'd it, but it wasn't a hard DNF at the time. And I am wanting to try it again. It may end up being a hard DNF. I wouldn't be surprised if I did, but I am curious to read it and see. I like the whole concept of it. It's set at the turn of the century in the United States of America. It's got, you know, it's very much dealing with themes about American and the development of America and the issues in America, the good, the bad, the ugly, etc. And it's about how the world was changing, particularly the United States of America, so rapidly at the turn of the 20th century. And that's a big theme in the musical, at least, but I think also that's true of the book. And it's also about the various factions or substrata of the American citizenry, if you will, at the turn of the century that continues to this day to one extent or another. There were the immigrants who are coming from Europe, particularly Jewish immigrants is an emphasis. And there's also the issue of racism and how, you know, 30, 40 years post-slavery in the United States, how are things going in that regard, the success and or the lack thereof, that sort of thing. So, and it's all interwoven with the theme of ragtime music, which was a new music being developed around that time that started within the Black musical community, but was making its way into the white community and to the larger population in general, and was very, very influential in the development of music in America. So it's just really tying all of those threads together into one in a very interesting way. So the whole idea and the concept interests me. I'm not sure if the execution will be something that I enjoy or not. So, and then this one, so many people have told me this is great. There's another book that I did not realize was a companion book to this one called Celia's House or something like that. That also sounds very good that I would like to read. But this one is Listening Valley. It's set in, well, let me just read the little blurb real quick. Tanya has lived all her life in the quiet Scottish countryside and can't imagine herself anywhere else. But when her beloved older sister gets married and moves away, Tanya begins to wonder if there aren't bigger things on the horizon for her, too. The advent of World War II brings Tanya briefly to the heart of London. But just as she's settling into her new life, a heartbreaking tragedy sends her back home to Scarlet. That is by D.E. Stevenson, Listening Valley. And very curious to read that. And other books by D.E. Stevenson as well. I just haven't yet. And then this is, I actually have 2 in this series. One I've mentioned before. This is the True Colors series, which is a multi-author series. I believe they are published by a Christian publisher. Who publishes these? Or are they self-published? That's interesting. I guess they're self-published, but they, a group, oh no, that says Barber Books. This imprint of Barber Books. Barber Publishing. Okay. That one has it on the back, but this one doesn't. Interesting. Whatever. Anyways, there's a whole series, a multi-author series of books that are based, they're fiction books, but they're based on actual crimes that happened in America, historical crimes. And this one is The White City, which is about a woman who was kidnapped during the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. So I am very curious to read that one. The other one I have that I've not mentioned on this channel is The Blue Cloak, which is actually the first one in this series that caught my eye. And this one is set in 1797 in Tennessee. Wow, what was Tennessee like back then? Interesting. Anyways, well, this is very interesting. Okay, let me tell you what this is about. I'll read the blurb in the back. Rachel Taylor lives a rather mundane existence in 1797 at the way station her family runs along the Wilderness Road in Tennessee. She attends her friend Sally Rice's wedding only to watch the marriage dissolve into horror as the groom, Wiley Harp, and his cousin Micaiah become murderers on the run who drag their families along. Wow, kind of gruesome. So that's Blue Cloak in the same series. And there are others. If I like those, I may find the others in the series and read them. This one, I think everybody's pretty familiar with the concept of this one, The Scarlet Pimpernel, which is set during the time of the French Revolution and is about an Englishman who rescues innocent French noblemen who are being sentenced to the guillotine and helping them to escape to England, which was definitely, they escaped to England. The Scarlet Pimpernel person himself is fictional, but as far as I know, but the fact that French nobility escaped to England and other European countries is definitely true. And this was written in the 1900s, early 1900s. So it's now a classic, but was historical fiction when it was written. And I have read it before and I really loved it. And I want to read it again. I also really like the movie, the old movie with, it's old now, with Jane Seymour and, I forget the guy who played Sir Percy. And there's also a musical, which is fun as well. You can find videos of it on YouTube. And then this is another one, Laura Frantz. She writes exclusively historical fiction. Most of them have a bit of romance in them, but she's always delving into stories of early American history, colonial times, that's Revolutionary War times. And this one is a Moonbow Night, set in the wilds of Virginia and Kentucky before they were even states. Virginia was a colony at that point. I don't know about Kentucky. I think it was just like a wilderness at that point. So that is on my list for soonish. I just picked this one up. This is a young adult novel from the 90s, I believe, or maybe it was published in the 80s. The 80s or 90s by Anne Rinaldi, who wrote historical fiction for young adult and was one of my sister's favorite authors. Now, I don't think any of my sisters even realize how many books she has written because I didn't until I looked it up. Maybe they do. I don't know. Girls, you can comment in the comments if you knew that. But she has written tons of historical fiction for young adult readers. Now, in the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s, I think of her as being similar to Ruta Sepetys in a way, because Ruta Sepetys also writes historical fiction for young adults. But I think Anne Rinaldi's books are, first of all, a little bit shorter. Secondly, she almost exclusively deals with American history. So there's a definite emphasis there on American history. And this particular one is called The Coffin Quilt, and it is about the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys. So I am very interested in reading that. And other books by her, actually. Once I've read this one, I will be curious to pick up some other historical fiction by her and read those. So I'm getting into the stack, by the way, now of books I've not mentioned yet on this channel that I recall that have been on my shelf, some of them for a long time, and that I really want to read. This is a more recent find for me, Out of the Easy by Ruta Sepetys. And this is set in New Orleans, I believe. I don't know when. It looks like in the 20s or 30s, maybe. Okay, so it says... she talks about her mom working in 1940 in New Orleans when she was 7. So she was 7 in 1940. So 50s probably, set in the 50s. So that is Out of the Easy. That 50s, the other book I read by Ruta Sepetys was also set in the 50s. So like post-World War II kind of era. And then this one is Twains End by Lynn Cullen, which I'm not sure. Like I've read good and bad things about this. So I don't know in the end if it's something I would really... enjoy or not, but I want to try it at least before I give it up. Plus it's a lovely copy. Like that's a beautiful cover, and then you open it up and it has that full color little page in there, which is really pretty. And then it's about Mark Twain and his secretary, and I don't know, there was a mystery there, like unsolved, like not a crime per se, just maybe scandal more like, and secrets and things that people to this day aren't quite sure about. So this is one author's exploration of that and ideas about what went down there. Seems kind of intriguing. Mark Twain interests me. And then this one, which everybody and their brother has read except for me. So I would like to read this one, The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. And you know what more is there to say? It's a World War II book. And I want to read it. Then we have this one. I've heard that there may be content in this book that I don't like. So I'm not sure if this is one that I will love or not. But I'm interested in trying out this author. And this one, I believe, is set in Russia. The Diamond Eye. So ever since I saw it, I have been interested in reading it. Ukraine, actually. In 1937, in the snowbound city of Kiev, Rye and bookish history student Mila Pavlichenko organizes her life around her library job and her young son. But Hitler's invasion of Ukraine and Russia sends her on a different path. So, another World War II book, but definitely a different place than we're used to reading World War II books. So, I'm curious to try it, if nothing else. Jennifer Chiaverini, I have read one or two of her historical fiction books. This one is about Mrs. Lincoln's dressmaker. And it says, in a life that spanned nearly a century and witnessed some of the most momentous events in American history, Elizabeth Hobbs Keckley was born a slave. A gifted seamstress, she earned her freedom by the skill of her needle and won the friendship of First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln by her devotion. So, it explores their relationship. I'm not sure that you can call it a friendship, but it explores their relationship throughout the life of Mrs. Lincoln. So that's an interesting perspective on that era of history. And again, gorgeous copy. Look at that gold lettering and this full color page that has, you can see the edge there. It's just pretty. And then I have two by Patti Callahan, and these both kind of revolve around C.S. Lewis and the people that he knew, and also fictional people surrounding him. So this is Becoming Mrs. Lewis by Patti Callahan, which is about C.S. Lewis's wife, presumably. From New York Times bestselling author Patti Callahan comes an exquisite novel of Joy Davidman, the woman C.S. Lewis called My Whole World. So, that will be interesting. And I've heard really good things about this. I've also heard really good things about this book by the same author, Once Upon a Wardrobe, which is a fictional story that also interacts with C.S. Lewis and his famous series, The Chronicles of Narnia. And then I have another book by Ruta Sepetys, which is Salt to the Sea, which is the first book of hers that caught my eye and made me aware of her as an author that I was really interested in and wanting to read. I just haven't yet. And this one is, again, kind of World War II adjacent. It starts at the end of World War II. Winter 1945, 4 refugees, 4 secrets. Each one born of a different homeland, each one hunted and haunted by tragedy, lies, war. As thousands desperately flock to the coast in the midst of Soviet advance, 4 paths converge, vying for passage aboard the Wilhelm Gustloff, a ship that promises safety and freedom. But not all promises can be kept. And I believe, was this one that was based on some of her family history, I feel like, but I could be wrong about that. I may just be making stuff up. But if you know, tell me. And anyways, I really want to read that one. And then finally, I have A Fall of Marigolds by Susan Meissner. I like Susan Meissner's style of writing. She's a very good writer. I just don't always love how she handles the themes and topics in her books. So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with her, but I'm always willing to give it a try. And this one is set in September 1911 and September 2011. So it's a dual timeline and set in New York. On Ellis Island in New York Harbor, Nurse Clara Wood cannot face returning to Manhattan, where the man she loved fell to his death in the Triangle Short-Race Fire. And then in 2011, on Manhattan's Upper West Side, widow Taryn Michaels has convinced herself that she is living fully, working in a charming specialty fabric store and raising her daughter alone. And then it is dealing with the World Trade towers that happened in 2001, etc. So deals with history there as well. I can't believe I'm saying that that's history because I was a fully grown adult when that happened. But anyways, so A Fall of Marigolds by Susan Meissner, also on my list. So of those, do any of them interest you, or do any of them seem like books that I would enjoy? Or have you read them and do you have thoughts about them? Good, bad, ugly, indifferent? And what other historical fiction books are on your radar that you really want to read? These are, like I said, only the ones that I actually have in my possession there are so many more that I have heard people talking about, ones that are new and recent, as well as older books that are also on my radar that I also want to read. But these ones are on my shelf and I really want to read them, you know, when I get to them. So let me know your thoughts in the comments and let's talk about historical fiction. And I will see you next time. Bye.